This one's going to bug me because it's been a long time since I had this big of a failure. Oh, look at that. Look at all those nice marks. They play well together. Woohoo! Voila! You can see how much is off of there. A slow process, just continually building layers. Oh, looky there. Catching like layers of leaves and branches over one another. See, when I drag it over this light, it mixes with that light and pushes that back, yet joins it to this middle ground. That's what I was looking for. That is sweet! Welcome back, everybody, to the Wet Pastelist. I'm Avon Waters. Watch me fail today. That's what this one is all about, is failure and how to try to handle it, how to try to overcome it. I didn't start out for this video to be a failure, but it did. And it's good for you to know that even with a number of years of experience, not everything works. So I'm not going to bore you with a lot of the details. I'll skip forward to the 2 or 3 different versions. This thing was probably headed to be an hour long, but it's going to be a whole lot less than that. So I'll speed through some of these things, and I'll show you how ideas that looked like they were going to work just didn't, and trying to shift gears 2 or 3 times still didn't work. Enjoy my failure because I learned something from it. So hit the like button if you're enjoying this content. I don't think you'll enjoy the end product of this one, but at least I'll share my failures along with my successes. So let's get started. Here's some close-up, and you can see the texture that's in here from the gesso and the previous paintings on this. Clear gesso was put over an underpainting of pastel. I just started to add these pastel areas. That's the only part that is free. And I can blend it in, I can leave it. And these areas here are all sealed from the clear gesso. But you can see the wonderful texture in here. Very difficult to work with, but we'll see how and if I can pull a painting out of this piece. This piece was done and just stored on the wall. Actually, it didn't even make it up to the wall. I had it on the floor. It originally was part of a demonstration with another video, and I got to looking at it the other day and I thought, hey, let's see what we can do with this. Okay, so how do we take something from an underpainting and finish it? I'm going to put a little orange up in here because it's a nice contrast. Orange has red in it, and there's these greens. And along the horizon, so many times, the horizon is a little lighter than the upper sky. I've said that many times in my video. That upper sky is coming up over us, it's not coming straight up. So it has a little more intense color. So by putting this in here and sticking a little blue-gray over it might give us a contrast over that green. We don't know what that green's going to be, or I don't. Maybe you guys do, but I don't. So this may or may not work, but we'll see where this goes. It just caught my eye the other day, and I just wanted to see if I could somehow start to take this to a little bit more finish. So I thought it'd make a good video to do that with, and we'll see what happens. And because of all those darks in there, and this is much lighter, we have to blend that together. Now there's little specks here and there, that dark coming through, which is fine. It gives it a feel that you couldn't get if you didn't have texture on. You'd have to do that with mark making, and that's the whole idea of the texture, is the texture does some of that random mark making that otherwise you'd have to try to make look random. So that's the goal here, is to see if we can get some of that. And I think I'll switch to a little bit different color here, but I'll stick some of that orange back in there since I blended it, and we'll see what happens as we go over that with another color, because I don't want that to end up orange in the finished painting. Not since we went with more, I very rarely go with traditional greens and blue skies. So this will be interesting because it's been ages since I've tried that. Now some of these trees, the lower branches, Now this is out of my value 3, which is a little on the darker side. Those obviously were in the probably the 7 and 8 range. But some of these branches that are in the shade, I'll tone down some of that bright green. But you see how these marks, they disappear? That means that this is in a value 3 also. So I'm able to blend those values in there. And this looks like it's a brown, but it's got a little green in it. And browns are part of the red and yellow family because they translate as darker oranges. Browns are really oranges that are all knocked down by colors. This is also out of my 3 box. This might be a 4 that's gotten mixed in there. I see it's a little bit more contrasty. When I squint at it, it doesn't disappear. But it will maybe marry with some of these things and make a middle tone in some of these tree shapes. I want this little tree sticking up in the background here. I think I'm going to put a little violet in it and see if I can get it to kind of go back somewhere between the front and the background trees there. I'll get some violets in these trees off in the distance, blue violets, red violets, we'll see. Oh, look at that. Look at all those nice marks. There's a lot of vertical marks here because when I put the underpainting on with the gesso, I knew there could be grasses or shapes of grasses up in there. So those vertical marks are really playing well with this. They play well together. Woohoo! That's what we want. We want our colors to play well together. This has a little yellow in it, but it's really toned down. So I think it'll make for a good color back in here. Again, those are like, instead of sky holes or tree holes where we see the meadow or whatever behind it. I want to blend all this together and blur it up. So in other words, I'm going to be destroying this here in a minute. Grabbed out of my box some red violets, blue violets, and probably a little bit more on the blue to see what might work back in here over this to get that to appear as something off in the distance but not blend into the sky. So let's just see what happens here. Probably have to readjust that, but that's getting us a little bit of separation in there. Let's add a little more red to that. Red's the opposite of our green, so we should get some good color vibrations in where some of that stuff peeks through the texture. Really nice strong texture on here. I'm really liking that. That's turning out nice. Let's see if we can get that to go a little more green violet before we're done. Blue violet maybe. Want it to appear before that tree line, but not so close that it's competing with these trees. So there's a little less atmospheric haze between this tree and those trees back in there. So we'll try to see if that works. It might just be too close to the center and not work. We'll see. Well, I'm experimenting with some colors here because I want get some established, some darks in there. So I think I'm going to go with some blue-green, and then we'll have to go back over this to lighten areas of these trees up. And if I can get that to go out into here, that tree will become a little more interesting, not too spotty maybe. I don't know, it might turn out too spotty anyway. Might be more than one tree, might be several trees out in there. Underneath a clump of trees like this, you're going to have some darker greens. I might be in too much of a habit of changing colors that I just will make this thing something other than greens and blue greens before I'm done. Who knows? Let's get the base of that tree established a little bit between here and here. These trees are here, going along here. This bunch of trees is maybe in a little different area. It's kind of leaning out this way. The growth pattern would drip down in there a little bit and maybe go a little higher. So let's see. You can really see with this dark color, you can really see some of those textures trying to create a little bit of a wedge here, so this is kind of leading in, kind of an L-shaped composition with this out in here. It could be a steel yard composition. Any folks that you'll have to see my composition videos to know what I'm talking about when I talk about steel yard and L composition shapes, unless you've studied composition in another video or something. So now let's go a little bit more towards the greens, mix it with that blue and see what comes out underneath that. I think I need a little bit more of an earthy green under there. Kind of like these were earthy colors here. Now I may have to go back to more of an earthy green, but I got to get the values of this shade and light down a little bit better than what's in here, because it's just not working for me anyway. It's not reading front to back like I want it to. I'm going to just mix that in there, and then probably I'll destroy it with a blend here. Let's see what happens. This has got a little more earthy color to it, but it's still pretty bright. It might catch some of those other highlights and give us some shapes that, as we refine this. Going from big shapes to small shapes, and a lot of times that texture helps me find those small shapes. Knowing what I do about trees and tree construction, I can follow the dark or the light or the middle tones in some of these things after I blend it together. So let's destroy this and see what happens. Because these grasses will have some shapes, I'm going to do vertical destruction on this. And I can move some of that green and the hazy stuff. Those trees off in the distance also have green in them. So by me moving some of that up into there, it'll help those things read better as trees rather than just a blue-violet or red-violet shape back in there. A little more pressure is being added here because these are the darks. Voila! You can see how much is off of there. There's very light pressure here, just making these edges fuzzier into the sky, less descript because it's not going to be the center of the focus. Not sure what is yet. That's always a bad sign. When you don't have your center of focus established and you're already past the block-in stage. But again, you know, hey, it's an experiment. I have this green on there. Green's the opposite of red, and so I've got red violets up in that sky, so this will help darken that down a little bit, or gray it down, so to speak. So that when we go over it, I'll have a lighter value here, a middle value here, and a darker value here. And I just have to worry about the color temperatures as I go up into the sky and the finish. Because once I get the values the way I want them, then it's just a matter of working with color temperature, moving the eye forward and backward. It's an interesting little video today about color temperatures and values. I got a value 4-5 that's kind of a rusty, brownish, earthy orange, and I think that will tame down some of the middle tones in these trees. That green, even though I have blue-green underneath it, that green is getting a little intense. Going with what could be grasses in the future, don't know yet. Don't know yet. The possibilities are endless here. Now after I destroy that, see how much more interest this color has. If I tried to put that over that before destroying it, I'd have way too many of those early darks coming through. I still have a lot of those darks coming through, but they just look like little tiny shadows of either where branches overlap or where bases of weeds and plants are in there. I got 2, 1, 2, 3. That's way too similar. That must be my OCDC kicking in. Gotta have all the M&Ms of the same colors lined up before I eat them. You know. Some really nice edges. Gosh, I wish you could see how close up those fine little brush hairs have made some of these colors splay out. Wow, wow, that's nice. I'm gonna get this. This is out of the 3 value 3, so it's going to stay with those darker blue greens that I put in there, but it's going to make this a little more earthy because of the oranges and the greens. Look at that. That's a whole lot earthier than those greens and blue greens that were on there. So working our way towards the right color combinations for some of these things. A slow process, just continually building layers, letting other layers peek through. Nothing very distinct yet, just, you know, red is the opposite of green, so it should naturally gray these things down. And when I put other greens over it, they should stay kind of earthy. Let's see what happens when I drag that middle tone. Oh, looky there. Catching like layers of leaves and branches over one another. Oh, yeah. Not pressing very hard, just letting those paint marks catch some of this. So I guess I'm really starting to break up those big shapes into smaller shapes by doing this. And I can follow those, choose which ones to follow. That's the key. You got to choose which ones to follow, which ones to eliminate, which ones. And you got to do that based on what you know from your observations of nature or from your photo sources if that's what you're using still. See if I can darken this up a little bit. Yeah, that didn't darken it up. That's too light a value. It'll brighten that up a little bit. That's kind of interesting. Blue is the opposite of orange. I put those oranges in there as an underpainting. Tried to turn them a little bit gray with some more orange and or some blue, and now this is brightening those areas up a little. If this is darker, this is kind of a blue-violet. The sky up overhead is a little more intense, so the fact that this has a higher chroma might work out to start to bring that sky into relationship and bring it over our heads as opposed to straight up and down. Out of the 6 and 7 value box, I've pulled a little bit of a pale orange, a pale yellow, and kind of a greenish yellow here. And then this is also out of that box. No, this is actually out of the, it's probably a value 8 and 9. I want to, back in here, I want to see if I can't get some separation between this tree and the meadow or whatever it is that's going back in there. Now this would be too light, but when I put one of these other colors over it, it might work to separate the foreground from the distant trees. You see, that's way too bright. So we go over the top of that with a little earthier green. This may be too bright also. Yeah, that's too bright. Kind of like that color though against those. This is, now you see how this green, if I drag it down into here, it becomes kind of a middle tone. Oh, look at that. Nice little grasses going up through there. Oh, this might be, but see when I drag it over this light, it mixes with that light and pushes that back, yet joins it to this middle ground. That's what I was looking for, to get some of that middle ground starting to be defined. Still got to decide where that tree lands. Tree might land in the dustbin of history if I don't like it. See the light? I'll go back over that. It lightens up this, and then yet we can pull down middle tones by pulling that in there. So remember, you can always put a light color in and then get something you want for your middle tones, and you can do both at the same time because you've got that light tone lightening your middle tone, and you got your middle tone coming down. We'll see if it stays a middle tone. It might not. It might just change this. I got that 1, 2, 3, so I've got to do some changes in here to either add some more branches. Maybe this is a clump of trees, not a single tree. Now I'll step back in a minute and see if that reads a little bit better, but I'm liking this. And look how different that color is from over here. So this has really 3 colors in it. Albert Handel always says that a pastel has 3 different colors depending on how hard you apply it. And that's exactly what is happening here, is when I apply it lightly over a base, it's got a different color than if I apply it over white, or that's not really white, that was a real pale yellow, or I apply it over something dark. But he says that you can just take it right on a piece of paper and see those 3 depending on the pressure you apply to it. So thank you, Albert. You did wonderful. That's a perfect example of this, right in through here. And this is that area I wanted to have that wedge come through there, so I'm going to make some irregular mark making in here and see if we can't get some shapes to start to emerge. That almost looks like it's a bright yellow now you put it against the darks. This is a very versatile color for this, and like I said, this came out of the 6 or 7 box. I'm sorry, the 6 or 7 box. A little harder application over those darks, and look at those grasses come out because of the texture underneath. That is sweet. I don't know what this kind of pale orange will do. Let's just play around and see. We might have a center of interest developing here. I don't know. Just a tad up in here, around that tree, around that. It's very, very light application, just so light that it's just barely making any marks over those pale blues. I'm just hitting just the tops of some of those things. This is my 1/3 mark, so this would be an excellent place to have maybe the light coming down as the center of interest. I don't know yet. I don't know. This is a follow along and see what the heck happens, man. That's getting kind of interesting. I don't know. We'll see. Kind of an earthy, rusty green. These little spots that are in here, they're left from the skips and jumps, and if I just apply a little bit of this into some of those, I can make some clumps that maybe with a brayer or something I can roll in some textures that maybe would simulate clumps of grass here and there in that meadow. I'm liking how this comes across here. Still got issues with this tree here, but we'll work on it. There's some nice textures in here that where the edges of those trees are sticking out. This makes some nice application of the way trees would hang down in there. A few little scraggly little limbs out. This is still too blue-green. We got to get it into the earthies, but it's got to stay dark. So I'm not sure yet what colors. I think I'm going to have to add some more reds in there and then put some greens over it and see if scumbling this across the, see how I scumble across there and I get some of those. So if I had this the right tone back in here, the right color hue, then when I scumble across here I would get some highlights of grasses or things. So let's get that off of there. That's actually helping to tone down that blue, but I got to get it darker. This is a rusty orange, so you see I can tone that way down. It's almost the same value, came out of the 4 and 5 box. That value's come up because I think we were in the 3s earlier maybe. And see how bright that is, how intense that green is. My goal here is to put this down and then just mix these two together to see if I can get, and it's still pretty intense. Let me see if I can find something a little rustier, but let's get this in here. Let's see what that does, and then put this is a lot lighter, but mixing with that, remember how we got the lights over the darks and the darks over the light in here? The same principle, but we're in our shadows now. Yeah, I can come back into this kind of rusty reddish brown. With this paler green, and it will go a little darker but keep me on the earthy side of those greens rather than the orange side. I may have to put some blue underneath there first too, but that's doing a lot better. We're getting close. Getting close. As they say when we were kids, close but no cigar. Close as in horseshoes and hand grenades. Beautiful lines in there, but they're not working as a tree. I love that when that happens in a sky. A little bit more mark making in here since this is grasses. Still want to see what that brayer, that little small brayer will do. This is the little half-inch brayer. It's a print brayer. It's soft. Just Google soft rubber print brayers, half-inch, and you'll find a number of suppliers. Folks, I think this is a failed painting. I sat back, I looked at this, and while there's some fun things happening in here, I think I was actually on the right track when I put some oranges down in this part of the sky. I mean, just look at that. These blues, these greens, this sky doesn't have any unification with this painting. And I think that I've got to go way more orange on some of these things. So let me just knock some things down here and see what we can come up with. See if we can come up with the hint of a solution for this. These are fluorescents. You don't see them on the camera as fluorescents, but they're really fluorescents. And I think blended with that orange, I'll get a nice peachy undertone to that sky. And these are all too green. They have to be earthy oranges or go on to the orange side. So let me see if I can get some oranges started in here. And try to keep this area back in here maybe a little bit more on the blue-green side. It's not so bad. This was the most interesting, but let's get some oranges in there and get rid of that green. That green is just not working for me. See how that's staying dark? We can get it down into the oranges and we'd be better off, I think. We could have just a real mess on our hands before we're done here. See what happens here. May still remain a failed painting, but it's not like we didn't try, huh? People have to see one another's failures now and then. But I'm already liking it better. It may still fail, but I like going into the rusty oranges. Start blending with my lights. This will look a whole lot different after I get it blended. It's pretty rough. But let's see if we're headed at least to the right palette combinations. With those greens underneath are really helping knock down some of the brightness, which I anticipated a little bit, but wasn't sure exactly until you actually do the blending whether it's going to work or not. And it may not work, like I said. Hey, there's nothing like doing a crummy painting every now and then just to let everybody know that not everything works out for you. Definitely getting some more earthy colors in there, which was what I was really trying to do, but I just couldn't get it to work. Get those things silhouetted, see if some of those colors will mix in there and give us an idea of what needs to be done back there. Definitely way more unified in color between the sky, the trees, and the foreground, but way off on color. This is a failed painting. Nothing on this is going to have to set and become something totally different. Well, I've tried many different things here to see if I could figure out what image is in this piece of paper. And this one's going to just have to, it's just going to have to set. This is I've tried 4 different things here, and it's just not popping out and telling me what it needs to do. Every time I think that it's telling me, I just don't get what, I just can't seem to pull it out. So there you go, folks, a failure. You don't have a successful day every day, no matter how many years you've been at this. Trying that tree line, light, dark, trying to make these things disappear at the top, maybe stay at the bottom. I just don't think that that's the direction this needs to go. So I'm going to stop there. Hope you got something out of the process of trying to take a painting that I thought something was there, and it just is not working. A couple different color palettes tried here, oranges. Now I'm going into the reds, and there's some things I can see, but it's just not telling me where the highlights are. Interesting process. Interesting process. Here I am, still fiddling with this. I think it's going to turn out to be something totally different in shape, totally different in concept. Nothing similar at all. Yeah, I'm kind of liking this and this contrast in here. I think what I'll do from this point on is I'll sit back and I'll see these shadows and see if I can draw some different grayscale items that will resemble the shapes I'm seeing here, and maybe that will inform something to come from this. But boy, whatever I started here today was not working. This one's going to bug me because it's been a long time since I had this big of a failure. I've had failures before, and some of them have been on camera, but you know. Kind of liking where that's headed, but I'm not going to bore you with that today. Let's find out where it's headed, and then I'll come back with something. Thanks for joining me for a failure, and hopefully you got something out of that. All right, until next time, everybody, happy painting. Bye. Well, that was really kind of fun. We don't like to show our failures, but I don't mind showing it because it's true. We all struggle some days, and today was one of those days. You got to watch me try to pull a rabbit out of my hat, but it was the wrong hat, as Bullwinkle would say. So, till next time, happy painting. We'll have something better for you probably next week. Bye-bye.